Hollywood used to greenlight strange stories. In the 1980s, studios backed thrillers that were too slow, too sexual, too weird, or too psychologically intense for today's culture machines. They weren't designed for clicks or comfort. They felt relentless, raw, and complicated. Now they exist as cult classics, movies that broke rules, blurred lines, and simply wouldn't make it through a studio meeting in 2025. Deadcom is about a couple named John and Ray who take a solo voyage across the Pacific after losing their son in a car accident. They're trying to recover in silence, far from everything, when they come across a stranded man named Hughie drifting in a lifeboat. He claims his ship went down during a storm, and John sails over to investigate while Ray stays behind. That's when things shift. Hughie takes control of their yacht, leaving Ray trapped in the middle of nowhere with someone she doesn't know and doesn't trust. The rest of the film plays out like a slow, psychological chess match between her and Hughie as she tries to survive and find a way back to John. Nicole Kidman was only 20 during filming, playing a grieving woman caught in a brutal situation far beyond her years. She did most of her own stunts on the open water, including piloting the yacht during rough seas. The shoot was intense. Some scenes, like the one involving Ray's forced intimacy with Hughie, were deeply uncomfortable and sparked years of debate over whether the moment was exploitative or essential to the story. After filming wrapped, Warner Bros. Demanded a more dramatic ending and brought everyone back months later to shoot the explosive flare gun scene. That final sequence wasn't part of the original vision, but it's now one of the film's defining moments. Blowout puts you in the shoes of Jack Terry, a sound effects specialist working on a low-budget political thriller. While recording ambient noise for a B-movie on a quiet stretch of Philadelphia road, he captures something chilling, the sound of a car crash that might have been an assassination. As Jack reviews his tapes, slowing them down, isolating each sound, he hears what he believes is a gunshot right before the tire explodes. That detail sets him on a spiraling investigation involving a dead presidential candidate, a woman named Sally who was also in the car, and a hired killer trying to clean up the mess. Jack becomes obsessed with proving the truth, but each layer he uncovers only makes the conspiracy feel bigger, murkier, and more dangerous. John Travolta, still riding high from the late 70s, brings a haunted quality to Jack, a man driven more by guilt than justice. The production itself was filled with real tension. 2 reels from the film's climactic parade sequence were stolen during editing, and De Palma had to reshoot the whole thing on a tighter budget with a new cinematographer. Travolta's insomnia during filming gave his performance a disoriented edge that wasn't planned but worked perfectly. His breakdown on the soundstage wasn't acted, he was exhausted and broke into tears between takes. The film came out in the summer of 1981 and bombed, partly because audiences weren't ready for how bleak it gets. The final scene still leaves people shaken. Blowout didn't want to entertain you, it wanted to trap you in a soundproof room and make you listen. House of Games follows Margaret Ford, a successful psychiatrist and author who steps far outside her comfort zone after one of her patients threatens suicide over a gambling debt. Determined to help, Margaret visits a local poker den to confront the man who allegedly holds the debt. There, she meets Mike, a charming con artist who quickly pulls her into a world of high-stakes deception under the pretense of helping her understand compulsive behavior for a new book. What begins as research soon turns personal. Margaret, initially analytical and detached, finds herself drawn to the thrill of the hustle, the intimacy of the con, and the seductive confidence of Mike. She becomes a player in increasingly risky games until it's no longer clear whether she's observing or being used. Behind the scenes, the film was shaped by real-life tensions. David Mamet wrote the script specifically for his then-wife Lindsay Krause, who played Margaret, and insisted on rigid, stylized dialogue that some actors found difficult to perform naturally. Much of the supporting cast came from Mamet's circle, including magician and con expert Ricky Jay, whose expertise informed the realistic poker sequences. The story's biggest twist was reportedly kept from some of the cast to maintain a sense of paranoia and uncertainty on set, mirroring Margaret's slow realization that she's been conned from the start. This method created genuine tension during filming and helped deliver the cold, emotionally distant tone that made the movie stand out from other thrillers of the era. After Hours is about Paul Hackett, a lonely word processor in Manhattan who decides to meet a woman he just met in a diner. What starts as a hopeful date quickly unravels into a surreal, increasingly chaotic night across Soho. Paul loses his money, gets mistaken for a thief, narrowly escapes multiple attacks, and finds himself trapped in a strange maze of artists, punks, and night owls, each encounter more absurd than the last. No matter how hard he tries, he can't seem to get back home. The entire night becomes a fever dream of misunderstandings, mistaken identity, and a creeping sense that the city itself is conspiring to break him. Scorsese directed the film on a small budget after facing delays on a much larger project. The entire shoot took place at night, which disoriented the cast and crew, affecting both mood and performance. Griffin Dunn, who played Paul, described the process as physically and emotionally draining because being upside down from normal life left everyone slightly unhinged, which only helped the film's off-kilter tone. The ending, which sees Paul dumped unceremoniously back at his desk as the sun rises, came from a suggestion by British director Michael Powell. It closes the story in a quiet, surreal loop that captured exactly how Scorsese felt about trying to make sense of chaos in his own career. Body Double follows Jake Scully, an out-of-work actor dealing with a recent breakup and a deep fear of enclosed spaces. When he meets a strange fellow actor named Sam, Jake is offered the chance to house-sit a bizarre circular home in the Hollywood Hills. Through a telescope, he begins to watch a woman in a neighboring building who performs the same seductive dance every night. The voyeurism becomes more unsettling when Jake sees her being stalked and eventually murdered. The entire setup starts to fall apart as Jake dives into the underworld of adult films and realizes the woman he saw dancing wasn't who he thought she was. The plot turns into a layered mystery involving false identities, a cover-up, and a killer hiding in plain sight. Behind the camera, Brian De Palma was drawing directly from Hitchcock, cranking the sexuality and violence to levels that made even 80s audiences uncomfortable. The murder scene with a massive power drill sparked outrage and accusations of misogyny. Melanie Griffith, who played a porn actress named Holly Body, was nearly unknown at the time. Her performance gave the film a strange sincerity that helped it land somewhere between satire and horror. It wasn't well received when it came out, but has slowly become one of De Palma's most analyzed and discussed films. The Stunt Man is about a fugitive named Cameron, who stumbles onto a movie set while running from the police. After a freak accident kills a stuntman, the film's eccentric director Eli Cross offers Cameron a deal. If he takes the dead man's place and performs the stunts, Eli will help him disappear. But as Cameron sinks deeper into the production, he starts to suspect that Eli might be using the film as a cover to kill him for real. The movie intentionally blurs the line between fiction and reality, between performance and actual danger. Scenes that seem staged turn out to be real and vice versa. As the stunts become riskier and the pressure builds, Cameron has to decide if he's the star of a movie or the target of a setup. Peter O'Toole played Eli Cross like a director who thinks he's God, arriving on set via helicopter cranes and issuing commands like a dictator with a camera. The production itself was nearly as chaotic as the movie. The film took years to get made, was rejected by multiple studios, and had to be shot under constant budget pressure. Richard Rush directed it with a mix of satire and paranoia that confused audiences but won over critics. The final result is a thriller about control and performance that still feels weirdly ahead of its time. Eye of the Needle tells the story of a cold and focused Nazi spy named Henry Faber who is trying to get vital information about the Allied D-Day plans back to Germany before the invasion begins. After gathering the intelligence, his escape plan goes wrong and he ends up stranded on a remote island off the coast of Scotland. There he meets a woman named Lucy who lives with her disabled husband and young son. At first, Faber keeps his identity hidden and tries to manipulate the situation, but as days pass, things begin to shift. Lucy becomes suspicious, and Faber's mission becomes entangled with personal emotions, deception, and violence. The island setting traps them together in a tense standoff where personal survival and global stakes collide. The film was shot on the Isle of Mull, which gave it a wild and isolated atmosphere that matched the tension in the script. Donald Sutherland insisted on doing most of his own stunts, including dangerous scenes in cold water that led to delays from hypothermia concerns. The bleak tone and psychological edge were shaped by the tough shoot, where the weather often dictated the pacing and focus. Director Richard Marquand's work on this small film so impressed George Lucas that he later hired him to direct Return of the Jedi, which turned out to be a major turning point in his career. Eye of the Needle never became a mainstream hit, but its mix of quiet dread, wartime stakes, and real production risk gave it a long-lasting impact.